Hoping we can get it back off the cloud. Okay, I'm going to go back and share the screen. Maybe for the purpose of the recording, I'll go through my story again.
Thank you.
Okay, tonight I'm going to tell you about AVIS, which is the Andover Village Improvement Society. Then we'll take a visual tour of some of our reservations with special interest to West Parish. All photos were taken by me, except those marked with the photographer's name. The photo backgrounds on most of the text slides are of West Parish Meadow. So let's roll along. Yep, hello. Something has taken over my computer. Let me try it over here. Oh, there we go. Okay, a little bit of history. Across America in the late 19th century, people began to look at the effects of the Industrial Revolution, where urban areas were dirty, smoking, and full of horse droppings. As a result, there were many improvement societies formed to combat these issues. AVIS was one of these. In the 1890s, AVIS acted almost like a municipal parks department, garden club, and even reported on conditions at the town dump. They planted flowers around town hall, cleaned up around the train station, and set up many little parks around town. Meanwhile, Indian Ridge, the name of the glacial esker behind the high school, was about to be mined for gravel and destroyed. And Alice Buck led the efforts to acquire funds in dimes and quarters to purchase this land, and they formed a group called the Indian Ridge Association, which then merged with AVIS in 1915. AVIS, interestingly, was ahead of its time in having women on the board, and 4 AVIS presidents throughout history were women. Feel free to ask questions if they come up as we're going along. Indian Ridge, this is just a photograph of it. It's just a pile of debris left when the glacier left the area. It's located just south of the church. Now, some people seem to think, oops, that jumped on me. Let me get back where I should be. There we go. Okay, some people seem to think that AVIS is part of town government, and we were totally separate. We do work closely, however, with the Conservation Commission and other groups. And our mission statement is below. And we are really a land trust today. We no longer deal with planting flowers and cleaning parks and so forth. It's interesting to note that from 1896 until 1958, AVIS only owned about 23 acres in Indian Ridge. It did own small parks throughout town that were eventually turned over to the town or others. One such piece acquired in the 1920s was called the West Parish Center Triangle. Judge Chandler, an AVIS trustee, had the plot loamed, graded, and seeded. This was later turned over to West Parish Church. I have no idea when it was turned over. This was in the book by Moffat on AVIS. You may ask, who was Harold Rafting? Well, Harold Rafting was a trustee who was extremely aggressive in acquiring land for conservation. And I'll talk a little bit about the West Parish deal later on. AVIS owns roughly 5% of the total land in Andover. The Conservation Commission and trustees of reservation own another 15%. So we are very fortunate in having quite a large piece of protected land in Andover. How are we organized? It's an all-volunteer organization. 15 trustees are elected by the membership, and 4 officers are elected from the board. Of our 28 reservations, we have 60 wardens who maintain the trails, pick up trash, and oversee them. A pair of those wardens are former members of West Parish, Bob and Margaret Postel. In 2006, they passed the torch to Emily Trespass, an art teacher at Phillips Academy. I think many of you remember the Postels. Really nice folks. Membership. Membership is open to all. Dues start at $10 per year for students or seniors to encourage many residents to join and support our activities. And you don't get a whole lot compared to membership, maybe in some other organizations. You get a newsletter, but you know that you're helping to support open space in Andover, and that is so important. Scout projects. We utilize a lot of scouts around the community who work on our various projects. These were some of the projects done by West Parish Troop 77. And this is a boardwalk down at the Vale Reservation that one of the fellows did. This is the slope up Indian Ridge. On the upper left, you'll see just kind of a nasty place full of erosion and hard footing sometimes, and the nice steps on the lower right make that much nicer. This is a bridge on West Parish Meadow by Ross Barton. He was out of Troop 76 at Ballard Vale. Events. There are many hikes per year sponsored by AVIS, the Senior Center, and the Appalachian Mountain Club. The Department of Community Service runs programs on our reservations. The Essex National Heritage Trails and Sales Program usually has an event here. And there's an annual meeting with a dinner and speaker. Our meeting this year, which was scheduled for March, has been postponed for October, and hopefully we'll be able to do that one. Back in the day, in the 70s, we did a full cooked breakfast with stoves and meat and potatoes and the whole 9 yards. I think that got a little bit too much, so it's now coffee and donuts. And this same hike has been run every year for about the last 52 years on Rafting Reservation. Unfortunately, it also happens to be the same Sunday we have annual meetings, so I've missed it a few times, but it hopefully will keep going on. This is a Trails and Sales edible plant walk on Deer Jump one year. Appalachian Mountain Club on Deer Jump. That's the Merrimack River to your left. What are the challenges? Well, we've seen many more invasive species of plants in the last few years. The thought is it's caused by climate change as well as importation from other areas. So as a result, AVIS has taken a much more scientific approach to managing the land. Just can't leave it be and hope that everything is good. So we have some people with a lot of expert technical knowledge on the board and have received state grants for combating some of the most affected areas. Another area of issue is deer. An overpopulation of deer threatens the forest understory. These are the small trees that grow up and replace the large ones when they age out or get blown over by wind. And right now, a lot of our areas look like a park. You can look through and all you see is the big trees, nothing much. So we've worked together with, we've brought in the deer experts from the state of Massachusetts and came up with a plan. We are working with the Conservation Commission and are permitting deer hunting, especially permitted hunting, by archery only on our lands, and they've managed to get a fairly good harvest of deer through the years. Another challenge is the beavers. They dam the waterways and therefore flood trails and bridges, and so we have to generally relocate those pieces of our property. Let's talk a little bit about West Parish Meadow, which is really the closest reservation to the church. This 20-acre plot was given to West Parish Church by Suzanne Smith Purden in the mid-70s. The Smith family, as you probably know, had been active members of West Parish for generations and were involved in the beginnings of the church in 1826. Suzanne Smith Purden carried on her family's tradition of interest and support of West Parish Church during her lifetime. And you're probably all familiar with the Smith Purden Fund, and we have the Smith Purden Room and so forth. Once this land was given, there were many discussions that took place as how to best use this wonderful gift. There was talk of housing for the elderly, as well as selling to developers for single-family housing. A lot of time was spent talking, I'm sure. However, in the late 1980s, it was discovered that the church steeple needed a major structural renovation, and this land was then looked upon as a resource to fund this. AVIS, after about 3 years of work and discussion, ended up coming up with a deal to purchase and retain the back land while selling off some of the street frontage on Reservation Road at going lot prices. The sale price was $800,000, and AVIS embarked on a huge fundraising effort among neighbors, members, and people around town in general. And the deal was closed in 1992. And so this is just a wonderful piece of land in the middle of town, and not very many towns have land like this. The quiet place in the winter. There's a nice pond in the middle for those of you who've been down in there. Great place to play hockey. And in 1994, when AVIS celebrated its centennial, there was an event held on the Meadow. They started on Indian Ridge, which was AVIS's oldest reservation, and ended up on West Parish Meadow, which at the time was the newest. And we have another reservation called the Purden Reservation. This is located between Central Street and Lupine Road. And this was given in 1965. Suzanne Smith Purden lived on Central Street at the top of this land. So this was basically her backyard. And she didn't really want to see this wonderful area messed up or divided or whatever after her time was done. So that was given in 65. AVIS purchased an additional 4.4 acres in year 2000. I was part of that deal. Another interesting thing about this Purden Reservation is there was a hollow in there, and they call it Daniel Webster's Hollow. Daniel Webster came to town. Andover was a fairly strong Whig community, and there were some splits in the Whig Party. And he came in there, and there were about 4,000 to 5,000 people gathered in a natural amphitheater. They ran special trains from Boston. They had newspaper reporters from New York, and they all sat around, and Webster spoke for 2 hours in bitter cold. But apparently he had a rousing speaking voice. There was no PA systems. This was in 1843, and that was quite the thing that happened. This is a view of Purden in the winter. Again, just off Central Street. Just remarkable. The Collins Reservation is a very small 4-acre parcel, and it was acquired in 1982, gift of Helen Collins Dooley. Mrs. Dooley and her daughter Margaret Roberts were West Parish members for many years. Some of you may remember Margaret. Small but nice. A lot of these smaller reservations are things that the neighbors can go to, so they don't have to get in their car, they can just go and do it. Now we're going to hit some other reservations that really don't have definite West Parish connections, but they're of interest, I think. I'm not going to show you all 28 or we'd be here until midnight. So here's the Indian Ridge, which was the first one. Acres Meadow, right across the road, right across Reservation Road is this, which really is it's not a meadow, it's really a pond, but it was dammed up and used for muskrat raising. Somebody thought they were going to make a lot of money in the 1920s selling muskrat for fur coats. Well, the Great Depression happened in 1929, and that never worked out too well. It's a wonderful place to look at wildlife and birds. I've seen a swan out there at various times. The Vail Reservation is along the Shawsheen River, starting from the Ballard Vale area. Nice boardwalks there. The Sanborn Reservation was only accessible by canoe or kayak along the Shawsheen until AVIS purchased an additional 11 acres in 2015. This facilitated automobile access from South Street in Tewksbury. That's Route 93, the southbound lane. There's somebody in their kayak in a canoe. Notice this nice turtle crawling along one day. Beautiful wide stretch of the Shawsheen River there. Anybody tell me where this is?
That's the old railroad bridge, downstream from Central Street.
Yep, yeah, actually it's at the junction of New Pine Road and Central Street. In fact, they just did some major renovations on it about the past 2 or 3 years as they put the double track in. They managed to keep the facade of the bridge looking the same, even though they did major structural steel to support the tracks. So I think they did a nice job on that, really.
That slowed my commute for a lot of years.
I bet it did. That reservation also was the site of an Andover Canoe Club around 1910. Just across the Central Street is I'm standing on the Horn Bridge when taking this picture. This is the Shawsheen River Reservation. And this joins with Ballard Vale. So you can actually go and walk all the way from Central Street to Ballard Vale on protected land. Nice fields here. And with this fella put on a bunch of bluebird boxes, and those are now being maintained by a group of Girl Scouts. So good thing to get kids involved with. The deer jump is up near me and behind some of you folks as well. About 170 acres acquired between 1960 and 2017. This goes along about 3.5 miles from on the southern bank of the Merrimack River. It goes to the Tewksbury line all the way down past Fish Brook. Long and skinny. Most of this trail was on AVIS land, but a portion of it ran along the rear of the Franciscan Cemetery on River Road. And AVIS got a license to use it, but the license said that would terminate if the property was sold. So we were kind of, okay, we'd really love to get that trail, but didn't seem like that was going to happen. And then in 2016, the property was put up for sale. And what to do, how to make this happen. So this was a chance to do another deal. We had the AVIS board, the Melmark School, and Pulte Homes worked out a deal so that Melmark, which is a school for autistic students, could get land to build some residential group units, as well as additional parking. Pulte would build 4 condominium buildings plus some single-family homes on River Road, and AVIS would get the river frontage to protect the river and trail. One reason we were able to get that is the land is very steep next to the river, as you can see. That wasn't really feasible to build, plus they couldn't build within 200 feet of the river. But we managed to get quite a bit more footage in most of the area because of the steepness. You see how the stream comes down in little waterfalls. Once AVIS owned the land, volunteers got busy and built bridges and did some cut and fill to improve the trails and level them out. And that's just a gorgeous piece of land. The river is quiet and flat through there. On the west end of the trail, for years, it passed over private land that was owned by a fellow by the name of George Baracus. And he said, yeah, you can use it, don't worry about it. When he heard about the Franciscan purchase in 2017, he gave this land to AVIS. So now the entire stretch from east of Fishbrook to the Tewksbury line is protected. You might have heard of the Baracus wing down at the Museum of Fine Arts. He gave that as well. Yeah, nice man. The mountain laurel close to the power lines blooms about the 2nd to 3rd week in June. So in about 2 weeks, ought to be able to get out and see some of that if you care to. Some gorgeous displays. And where it seems to get a lot of sunlight, it almost turns pink, as you can see from this one. Another area of deer jump has been used for scout groups to camp over the years. This is down near the mouth of Fish Brook. Beauty all around if you go looking for it. This was a work party of volunteers repairing a bridge that was damaged by flooding along it's not near Fish Brook, but it's one of the small tributaries that flows into the Merrimack. The 70-pound pile driver is powered by 3 people and used to drive 4x4 lumber directly into the subsoil. And you can only do that for about maybe 10 or 15 strokes, and then another 3 people get in and do it. The Rafting Reservation is another one that was acquired over a period of time between 63 and 1965. This was a group of scouts that built an observation platform on a flat area of Fish Brook, where there's a lot of wildlife and birds and things. That's what it looks like. The Rafting Reservation is where those breakfast parties start out, and usually there's a ski run or a walk depending on weather. It's usually the end of last Sunday in January. The final one we're going to do today is Goldsmith Woodlands. This was a gift of Bessie Goldsmith, and her father was the first president of AVIS, so that kind of ties together. It's now owned by the Boston Foundation, but managed by AVIS. And they pay us a stipend every year for the management of it. This borders Foster's Pond and gives yet another water located reservation. Lady Slipper was in bloom. They're out this time of year if you go looking for them. Another quiet spot in winter. And as Julie Mofford said on her book in AVIS, the founders of AVIS knew, as we know in today's fast-paced world, that nature unspoiled fulfills a basic human need, and that sometimes something as simple as a walk along a wooded path can provide regeneration of the human spirit. And AVIS has a website. You can go there, and they have a lot of neat things. We have some interesting videos also that were shot by Andover High School students that show some of the different reservations. So that is what I have. I'm happy to take any questions. I should be able to stop sharing and get back to all of you. Okay.
Fred, are there any kind of scientific studies done on AVIS land since it's been kind of preserved? I know there's interest in tick studies and other types of studies. Have you partnered with anybody?
There's a gentleman in town that works in Harvard at their museum of, what's the name of the one that has the glass flowers?
Museum of Natural History?
Yes, it's a Museum of Natural History. His thing is categorizing different species, and he's done an inventory of some of our reservations with noting the different types of plants and so forth that we have.
Nice.
So that's helpful. We also deal with, we have a woman on the board that is, she worked as a forester, so she's very knowledgeable of a lot of the science that gets involved with land management.
I know there's a lot of interest in tick evolution given climate change and what's happening in the forests here now.
Right, right.
So with a big deer population, I think you might, cause a blossoming of the tick population.
Oh yeah, yep. Well, I think we've seen that in Andover. Sorry?
Pardon?
The ticks are evolving?
Yeah. Stronger, better, faster. Yeah, they're more prevalent today than they were 20 years ago.
That's for sure. This isn't really a question, but Fred, I'm amazed at how many, you said there were like 60 wardens or something that maintain the trails like
Yep.
that. I'm amazed at how many people are actively keeping things up. That's incredible.
That's a lot of people. The nice thing about the warden, generally they live within a 5-minute walk or adjacent to the reservation, so they can get out there every day or two. And so the one thing you will find is there's very little, if any, trash, because if there's a little bit of trash, they grab it and it's out of there.
And those are all voluntary positions, Fred?
That they are. Yeah, in fact, I wasn't sure of the number, because the last time I did that, I think we said there were 45. That was back in when I did the thing for the Women's Evening Circle. And so I went on the website and I actually went down and I counted the names on the list. And yep, that's what they have.
And other than, go ahead.
Go ahead, Blake.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to change the subject, so go ahead. Stay on wardens.
They go out every couple days, typically, to check on their...
Whatever. It turned out the guy who lived next door to me had been the warden of Deer Jump. Well, actually, Deer Jump is so long and skinny, it's divided up among about 5 or 6 different people. And so, he did that, and he kind of got older like a lot of us do, and he retired, and there was a fella down the street who I approached him. I said, hey, how would you like to do this? And Yeah, he says, I'll do that. And his wife came to me sometime later and said, this is just wonderful. He's out there every day, you know, sawing and chopping and cleaning, and he just likes it. Good for him.
And not in the house.
Not in the house. He
I
takes the
have a
dogs.
question about fundraising. Given our current situation, all the reservations are getting used so much more than they've ever, especially like Goldsmith.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if any extra thought has been given to, you know, leaving brochures at the, you know, the kiosks and some stuff like that, because I'm sure a lot of these people are not members of AVIS, and they really ought to be, given how many of them are out there nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. AVIS on the website has a special COVID notice because they're asking people to wear masks. You know, the one thing that's discouraging to me, though, is I've seen people apparently pick up their dog leavings and put it in a plastic bag, but they don't put it in their car and take it home and get rid of it. They leave it alongside the trail.
Right.
You know, just like you bring a empty market basket bag or something, leave it in your car, and then put your other bag in that, and you should be good to go. But leave it on the trail for a volunteer doesn't want to go picking up somebody else's dog mess.
Well, I'm glad to see the signs that have appeared.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get signs out. Yeah, I don't know. John Hess is the current guy who is the current president. I might just send him a little note and say, are you going to do anything about, you know, the fundraising? Because these are resources that are just wonderful to have, particularly at a time when the state has closed a lot of their properties and the trustees of reservations were closing a bunch of things. I think they're opening some up now again.
Fred, how well funded are you?
Yeah, I don't really have the answer to that. I think we have a couple of $100,000 sitting in our land acquisition fund. You know, I'd have to read the last spring. I think the last newsletter came out in the springtime. There's also a couple of years ago, they decided to do a land management fund as well as a land acquisition fund so that those monies would be used for those purposes. And I think the land acquisition or the land management fund is over 100,000 at this point.
Wow.
So it's
Yeah, I know.
not too bad. We're a lot better off when we started the whole West Parish thing. I think we had about 70,000 in the bank.
Yeah, we've been working with Andover Community Trust, and it's hard to get above like the 300,000 level, and then we use that for the next project, and then
Right.
it goes to zero. And so, well, it's great. I can tell you've kind of set me up now, because Pam is going to make me tell you what all those geologic features are and why there are steep banks along the Merrimack River, why there are eskers and moraines all over, and why there are glacial kettle ponds throughout New England. So I'm in
Oh,
trouble
yes.
now.
Oh, good, good.
Very, very nice presentation. The bar has been set. So.
So Fred, can I ask you, do you have a favorite reservation, one that maybe a lot of people don't know about that you think is like a hidden gem? Or
Oh, that's hard to say. I'm partial, I think, to Deer Jump because I can get there in 5 minutes and walk.
yeah,
So I spend more time on that than anything else. And I walk usually the streets every day, and I see maybe 3 cars out there, whereas I used to see none, usually on a weekday.
yeah,
So it's definitely getting more use.
yeah.
And I was to Goldsmith, and people were parked along Route 28 because the parking lot was full.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Fred, we see a lot of Bay Circuit trail markers on the AVIS trails now.
That's right.
What does that mean to AVIS to have those designations?
Well, AVIS worked cooperatively with the Bay Circuit Foundation. It was Al French, actually, was the fellow who made the Bay Circuit, well, not make it possible. This was something that was proposed back in the 1920s by Frederick Law Olmsted and some of those folks to do this kind of big emerald necklace around the state, starting in the North Shore, going over the Concord Bridge in Concord, Mass, and ending up in Duxbury. And Al kind of single-handedly made this happen by getting groups all through the state to figure out what the best route would be. And the people in Avis, before my time, had worked with Al, and we have 18 miles through Andover. I did that whole 18 miles in one day some years ago, and it's impressive what we have in Andover. It starts at Harold Parker and ends up along behind your house on Deer Jump.
So have you talked to John Pearson about the trail, the Bay State Trail, as it weaves through the West Parish Cemetery?
Not recently.
He has intentions of redesigning the trail through the cemetery to make it more user-friendly and approachable. I'm wondering if there's a teaming arrangement with Avis that he could do that with West Parish and Avis.
He could probably end up talking with David Dargy. And if you go to the Avis website, there's a who does what list, and David would be, I think, interested in doing that.
Of course, we'd have to approach the cemetery board as well as church members. But.
Yep.
Fred, I noticed recently off Dascom Road and running behind Ironstone, there seems to be a new trail that follows what they call the Lowell Lawrence train line, which I assume is the one that also went behind Haggett's Pond.
That's the same line, yes.
Is that a new trail, and how far back does it go?
Well, there's two pieces to that. There was a town piece of the trail that went kind of nowhere, went from nowhere. It started at the Ironstone property and went out to Brown Street. But Ironstone really they weren't friendly with the town at that point, and so they didn't want to give it to the town. Avis approached them, and Avis did a little land swap. Avis was given land on the other side of Ironstone as part of one of the subdivisions off of Brown Street. And the Ironstone folks were afraid that the hikers and people with dogs would spook the horses. And as you know, those horses are used for therapeutic riding, and horses can be spooked by something in the distance. So we agreed to give them that land in exchange for the old rail trail. So the rail trail has a piece from Lowell Street to where it joins the town land. So that's now open for public use. On the other side of Brown Street, heading toward Tewksbury, that's town land, and that's a town trail that they recently opened. I think they've done some boardwalks. I haven't really been on it, but I remember I walked that a bunch of years ago, and it was all full of weeds and thorns and wetlands. So the thought is that would provide another trail to connect in with some of that Tewksbury open land.
Yeah, I misspoke. It is off Lowell Street, but doesn't seem to be any parking there. Is there parking at the other end of it?
Don't know what they've done. I don't know if I haven't really looked recently. The Andover Trails Committee has sort of fostered some of the promotion, and they have a website of the various town properties. There's a link from the Avis webpage to their webpage and back and forth. They might have some information about it, but I don't know.
And you too can buy their book with Avis Andover Trails.
That's right. That nice handbook with all of the maps and information, and that's available at Whole Foods. It's available at Andover Bookstore.
For the modest price of $10.95.
Is that what it is now?
Well, Abby says that's 20 years old.
Okay, that's an old one. Yeah, I think it's a little more than that. It was 15 or 16 the last time I looked.
I think we should start a canoe trails directory. But we have a new West Parish rule that spouses can't be in the same canoe.
Oh, whoa, okay.
Right. Yep.
That's a good one, I suppose.
After our recent trip up the Shawsheen with the sergeants and the Swains. I'll just leave it there. No
don't,
further.
Don't go any further.
Plant the seed and run.
Well, please go on their website. If you're not a member, I'd encourage you to be one. And there's a membership form, and I think you can even sign up online. Don't even need to mail a check or anything. And there's a couple of nice videos. I like the one of deer jump. Is very well done by some of the Andover High kids.
And if you go to deer jump, you can see Steve Sargent running there like twice a week.
That's right.
Right? He runs right by the Denny's house and waves. Right?
Yeah. See him all the time. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Fred.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Fred. This was really good.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks,
you're
Fred.
very welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I learned so much.
I know. I had no idea there were so many.
It's a lot of acreage.
Yeah, it's an impressive group. When I moved to town, what's this AVIS thing all about? And I started to learn more, and then became a member, and then eventually got on the board. So it was interesting.
Good for you. Thank you.
Thanks for all your volunteer work there, Fred.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Excellent.
I hope you wear your West Parish green shirt when you go out in the trail maintenance.
That's right. Okay, I guess we'll sign off tonight and look forward. When's the next one? Next Monday?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. Yep.
Okay.
Who's doing that one?
So it's either you or Donna.
Oh boy, pressure's on. Better get my maps and slideshow in order here. All right.
And pass the word. We're looking for more. Anything you guys want to talk about?
I think you got to have the permaculture garden give a evolution of permaculture in New England.
Yeah, we did. We had that was the first one
missed
we had. Yeah. Yeah. Heather
missed
gave
it.
a great one. Yep.
Guess I better open my eyes.
No, we can do it again. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Fred. Hey,
Good
so
night, folks.
Fred.
Oh, so now what happens to this recording, Pam?
yeah, just click the button again to stop it.
Yep, you want to stop it. Yep.